Maria Taffe, our drugs and bugs lady, we like to call you affectionately. Just back from holidays.
That's correct.
Where did you go? Nice?
Nice, yes.
It was
South
lovely.
of France.
Yeah, south of France.
Beautiful.
What made the whole thing so wonderful for you?
Definitely the weather.
Yeah.
The weather.
You kept an eye on your sunblock and stuff like that.
Oh yes, as we
Important.
talked about, a minimum of SPF 15.
Yes, indeed. Well, you are welcome back. It's the McNally's chemist element of the show, and we talk to Maria at this time every week. We're looking at food poisoning this week, Maria, yes?
Food poisoning, yes, Rowan. The reason I wanted to speak to you about this is because I feel it's important at this time of the year, since the incidence of food poisoning actually doubles during the summer months.
Is that because of heat and partially cooked stuff sitting about, and
Exactly.
it's a bad combination chemically?
Yes, the warm weather, food sitting out, not being stored properly, barbecuing also seems to have quite a component to it. But yes, basically food poisoning is consumption of contaminated food. So it can be mild. Some people might just get a mild bout of food poisoning. Other people, it can be actually very severe. So
are we perhaps ingesting the kind of the creatures, the eggs of creatures, and the decompositional mass of other things?
Well, when we say contamination, you can talk bacteria. So we've all heard of Salmonella and
yes.
E. coli.
Yeah.
That would be two types of bacteria that would contaminate food. There's also viruses such as the norovirus, as well as that there are toxins which can contaminate the food. And usually if a toxin is contaminating food, the food poisoning isn't as severe and usually consists of a bout of vomiting.
Yeah.
So you're talking once you've ingested contaminated food, anywhere from 1 to 3 days afterwards, a person can suffer from a bout of food poisoning.
Yeah. I've heard that it takes, it's interesting, 1 to 3 days.
Yes.
I heard that it takes, someone goes out to a restaurant and they come home and they're ill. Oh, I got food poisoning at the restaurant. That's unlikely, because it takes, there's a gestation period, maybe 24 hours.
Well, the food can be contaminated, as I said, with toxins. That will be a type of food poisoning where it's one severe probably bout of vomiting and then they feel well quite quickly afterwards. Whereas if it's something along the lines of maybe E. coli or Salmonella, that can actually take longer to develop and show the symptoms to actually show, but it can be more severe also. Yes.
I remember eating Niger perch in Africa, and the stuff had been out on the banks of the river all day in the sun, and it was there, and that evening I had some of it, and I was never as ill in my life. It was just vomiting and weakness and terribleness, and it took all of 3 days to get over it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, the types of food to watch out for, Rowan, are raw meats, poultries, raw shellfish, raw eggs, prepared foods such as soft cheeses and pâtés, and that there's a possibility that they haven't been stored correctly.
Wow, yes.
Unpasteurized milk is another one to watch out for. And the reason these foods can become contaminated as such or can make us ill is the fact that if they're not cooked properly. So that can mean not cooked through, pink in the food, etc. If they're not stored correctly, so if they're stored above 5 degrees, so that will be outside the refrigeration range.
Wow, yes.
And it's important to remember that a fridge keeps food cool, it doesn't keep it fresh, so you have to watch out for the sell-by date.
Sell-by date as well.
Yes,
yeah.
sell-by date.
What happens
as well.
if I often would, when I was eating meat, I don't eat so much of it now, but I would have half of my belly of pork left over, you see. I wouldn't eat it all.
Yes.
And it would cool. And when it was cool, I'd put it in the fridge.
Yes.
And then I'd take it out the next day and reheat it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, the reheating, it has to be piping hot.
Yeah.
If you are you either cook food to it's piping hot and then eat it straight away, or you refrigerate it straight away. It's when food is left sitting out in an ambient temperature, it gives bacteria and other organisms an opportunity to grow and reproduce to a level that will actually
love it.
make you sick.
Yeah. yeah. Are you finding a lot of people are coming down with it at the moment?
Well, there actually was quite a bad, as we call it, a tummy bug.
Tummy bug. Yeah.
There was a quite bad tummy bug going around there. So
is it transmissible person to person, or is it from a surface or a food into the person only?
Well, it would usually be through ingestion. So an ill person, if they're touching food substances and they have been touching other bodily substances, they can pass it that way. Usually it would only be direct contact with food and actually ingesting the bacteria that would cause the illness,
The cure for it, what do you do? Someone comes to you not feeling well, they go to the chemist and Smiling Maria is there and you say, look, let me tell you what to do. What do you tell them to do?
As you know, Rowan, the symptoms, probably very well, you know the symptoms. Your nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, cramps, etc. Most people can actually deal with these symptoms themselves in their own home. So that would be rest and rehydration. They are the two main.
Is it enough to rehydrate with water alone, or should it be a saline solution?
For some people, fit and healthy adults, yes, it's fine to try and rehydrate with water. Drink as much water as possible, even if it's only sipping water. It's important to keep your system rehydrated. You can also avoid food at that time if you don't feel like eating. For some people, there are oral rehydration sachets, which are a mixture of electrolytes and salts, basically the substances which are, whenever you're vomiting or have diarrhea, you don't just lose water, you're losing electrolytes and salts as well. So these oral rehydration sachets have to replace these and then in turn rehydrate your body. So we would recommend, they can be bought in the pharmacy, and we would recommend for people in particular groups such as the elderly, the young, people with chronic medical conditions, anybody who is at a risk of dehydration, to go for oral rehydration sachets, yes.
In the area of rehydration and dehydration, water, lots of water, of course, especially in the bush in Africa or in India, it's always wise to keep an eye on the viscosity or the colour of urine, for example, because when it goes deep orange, you're not getting enough water into you.
That would be a sign of dehydration. So sunken eyes, that's another sign to watch out for.
Cover my eyes here, open all right.
Dry mucous membranes, so you're talking your nasal cavity would be dried out, your mouth would be very dry, as well as that, as you said, dark coloured urine and small amounts of urine being passed. That's another sign. So
right. How generally is the summer health of the nation at the moment? Down at the wellhead of knowledge that is McNally's.
It's so far it's been excellent. I've only been back a day or two, but everybody seems in good spirits.
Your colleague was very good last week, Kira. Nice girl, nice woman.
Yes, she's a lovely
very
girl.
Professional, like yourself, for goodness sake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one other thing, Rowan. There's a few groups of people that I would advise to consult their GP, not just the pharmacy. So babies, that's very important. That if a baby has come down with a bout of what is suspected to be food poisoning, they would a parent would consult a GP straight away. It's just they're at such a high risk when a child.
I suppose
is so young.
Babies, yes, definitely. But the other end of the timeline, the aged as well.
Yes, also, and people with decreased immune systems. So,
how would I know if I had a decreased immune system? I'm not awfully sure that I would know.
Well, if it was a person suffering from other conditions, if somebody's maybe suffering from cancer, their immune system wouldn't be at full force. There's other conditions where usually patients are aware if their immune system is lower, such as HIV sufferers. They would realise that their immune system isn't working at full force, and they'd need to consult a doctor straight away. For the normal set of healthy adults, they would also need to consult a doctor if they're experiencing a temperature greater than 38 degrees that can't be controlled because that's just too high. If they're experiencing vomiting for longer than 2 to 3 days and diarrhea for more than 3 days, that would be classed as very severe. Also, in the area, if there is an outbreak of food poisoning, it's important to remember You know, if it's classed that more than 2 people have food poisoning, that would be classed as an outbreak. Usually environmental health and public health would become involved. They like to map the situation to make sure. Yeah. I'm sure you remember a few years ago a Chinese restaurant in Belfast.
I do.
It was
I do.
At least 50 people that had come down with food poisoning at that time.
Yeah.
And if it's found that it is a bacteria causing the food poisoning, in some instances GPs will prescribe antibiotics.
Yes. Should people, it's food related, should people consume vitamin supplements? Is this a good idea or not?
Not at the time of food poisoning.
Oh no, not at the time of food poisoning, but as a general health regime.
If you're eating a healthy, balanced diet, most of the year round, you know, if you're eating your fruit, vegetables, your grains, portions of meat, etc., your body should be able to utilise what you're taking in. However, at times of the year, some people find that they may not be able to eat such a healthy, balanced diet. You sometimes hear of students around exam time when it's kind of grabbing a quick fast food meal here and there, they may not be able to have a nice wide range of fruit and veg in their diet, so they may find benefit from vitamin supplements at that time. Some people find if they're maybe run down would be a term we'd hear quite a bit. They like to
get a tonic.
Yes, a tonic, so that you're talking your vitamin supplements at that time. Yes.
I think the general rule has to be at this time of year: keep your kitchen clean. Don't cross-contaminate on the cutting boards, knives, and then deal with the food wisely and properly in the refrigeration system.
Exactly, and when we're speaking about barbecuing, it can actually cause quite a few problems, especially if you're cooking for a large number of people at one time. The Food Standards and Safety Agency actually recommend cooking your food indoors, so in a nice hot oven, and cooking it thoroughly through.
And then pop it on for the last little while.
Yes, pop it on just for flavour. It should have the nice charcoal flavour once it's already cooked indoors and then flavoured on the barbecue. You'll find some people when they're cooking on the barbecue and they're adding things on, so you have a nice cooked piece of meat and then raw sausages contaminated with bacteria are set beside on the barbecue, and that can contaminate the whole
Have
food.
you been following the Ebola outbreak in Africa at all?
Oh, I have, Rowan.
What's going on there?
Yes, it's Ebola virus disease, and it's a terrible virus altogether. So it's causing a lot of problems at the moment.
Is it curable?
There is no treatment at the moment, and there's
for
no
it.
vaccine also at the moment. And one of the problems, in my opinion, is it can take anywhere from 2 days to 3 weeks for a person to show symptoms.
Oh gosh.
And it actually can be spread then in that time. A person may feel well, but they're actually spreading it with direct contact between human to human.
But it's not applicable here. It doesn't.
Well, yet.
We could be contaminated.
We could be,
because there was an athlete from an African country examined for it over the last few days at the Commonwealth Games. So we're not totally safe from it.
Yes, I heard there was an athlete kept in quarantine. There is a blood test that can confirm or obviously tell whether you're infected or not. But it's terrible. It's transmitted through. The animals actually carry it, so you're talking bats, which aren't affected at all in those areas of Africa, can transmit it. So if a human comes in contact with any fluids, whether it be bodily fluids or blood from, say, bats, even pigs, monkeys, they're carrying it, plenty of other tropical animals. Any contact the humans have with their blood or bodily fluids, then it can be passed, and then it's passed directly human to human. And it's terrible. It's 50 to 90% mortality rate. Wow. So there's not a lot. There's not a lot they can do. I suppose we don't want to create public
no, but we just be careful. That's all. Be careful, and that's all we do.
Well, the world is such a small place these days.
It is, of course.
Yes.
Blink, and one moment you're in Nice. Blink again, you're back in McNally's and Uri.
Oh, I know. Thank you, Rowan.
Thank you so much for coming in.
No
God bless you.
problem.
Take care.
Thank you.